Hi, welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. In this two-part episode, I'll be chatting with Victoria, also known as Stregaluna to her social media followers. She gives us a raw and in-depth look into her traumatic birth story and how her experiences have shaped her work as a postpartum massage therapist. These episodes do contain graphic material, so please be aware of your comfort levels. Hello! Today I am here with Victoria. Hi, Victoria. How are you?
Hello. I am great. Thank you.
I am so excited to have you on the podcast. I feel like I say that a lot, but I'm very excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here.
You are doing your own magical things in the world of postpartum healing, and we'll definitely get into that in this episode. But I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I'm excited to have you on is that the work that you're doing is something that I really grasped onto when I found you on social media, and I've just been dying to get you on the podcast. So this is awesome. Thank you for being here.
Yay. That makes me so happy.
So before we sort of get into the meat of things, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I currently live in the beautiful state of Vermont, and I've been living here for going on 18 years. Before that, I lived in New Jersey, which is where I was born and raised. In that 18 years, I have also done my fair share of traveling around. I backpacked Europe for 6 months with my now husband. We traveled around the United States when we got back because we were just that much bit by the travel bug that we weren't done yet. We were really lucky to be in a situation where we were able to do that kind of traveling and ended up living in Boulder, Colorado, where we stayed for about 3 years. So while in Boulder, Colorado, I was working with children because I had my associate's degree in early childhood education. My interest up until that point was always working with children, particularly young children. I really loved babies and toddlers. And I thought that's what I had always wanted to do. So I always sought out positions with families as their nanny, daycare teaching, that kind of thing. So while out in Boulder, I had a really tough working situation. And it wasn't a lot of pay. It was a really tough family dynamic. I ended up kind of bouncing around other nannying jobs and daycare jobs. And it just wasn't fulfilling me. I came to a point where, I don't feel like the decisions that I have made are going to fulfill me or be sustainable, really. And that's when I found out that Boulder had one of the best massage schools in the country. And in addition to working with children, I had always had an interest in massage therapy and body work and sort of the more holistic side of living and awareness of wellness and well-being. And working with children and in these tough situations, I felt like I was kind of becoming very separate from myself and my body. I wanted to get back in touch with my body and everything like that. So I signed up for school and went for the more intense program that lasted 9 months and have been a massage therapist ever since. That was 12 years ago. Best decision I ever made was to become a massage therapist.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And I can attest from personal experience that you are an expert massage therapist. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
I had my first session with you not that long ago. I think it was a week ago.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh my God. I traveled an hour and a half to get there and it was worth every single minute. Yeah. You are magic.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And massage therapy is something I truly love, have connected with since day one. And it blows me away every day that I get to do something that feels so magical.
Yeah, it's amazing. So You mentioned that you always wanted to be a mom. What was that journey like for you to becoming a mother?
It was a lot harder than I expected. I thought in a very young and naive mind that it was going to come not easy, but it was going to come more gracefully than it did.
Mm,
Right?
mm-hmm.
I'm a massage therapist. I'm in touch with bodies. I understand anatomy and dropping down, dropping in all of the things, right? I had all of the tools. It was I felt set up to have a successful journey into motherhood. So when my husband and I decided, like, let's sort of actively try to get pregnant and have our first baby together, I was thrilled. I was just like, it's happening. I thought once we get going, just a matter of no time. It's going to happen in no time. And then month after month, it started to sink in that it was not going to come very easily. I did not get pregnant for the first 12 months of actively trying. And, you know, probably by month 7, 8, I started to get really nervous and started tracking my cycle using the thermometer, the basal body cell,
Yep.
thermometer, and was like, this should just be working. Like, what's going on? I get pregnant and I'm thrilled. I think we're good to go. I start telling everybody. And right about the 7 week mark, I lose the pregnancy,
Mm,
which was devastating. I knew the risk was there and I knew that it happens.
mm-hmm.
I really didn't think it was going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And so it completely rocked my world. And it was also very physically taxing, like there was just a lot. The body goes through a lot. So that was tough. That was tough. And then I got really nervous after that, obviously, trying because then it wasn't happening again. But what if it did? Am I just going to lose more? Has this opened up a reality for me where I'm facing infertility and multiple miscarriages, right? It's like, it was just
Right.
the unknown. So I get pregnant after another about year of trying. So 2 full years of trying, 1 miscarriage, and then I get pregnant with my daughter, my now daughter. Pregnancy was generally a positive experience just because it was my first time. It was everything that I had hoped and dreamed of for 2 years. It was, I did have the morning sickness. I was trying to be okay with that because it was what I wanted, despite
Right.
despite how awful and uncomfortable it is. I had unexpected bleeding actually 3 different times during my pregnancy with her. There has been no like reason or diagnosis or anything like that. It was probably caused by a cervical polyp that had developed during that pregnancy. My understanding is that if it rubs up on the cervix, it will cause some bleeding because we've got like double the blood volume.
Oh, yeah.
So that was also really scary. Like that was a real big bummer. I didn't know what was happening, if I was losing the pregnancy. It happened once during each trimester. So once
Mm,
right at like 12 weeks, again around 22, and then again right at the beginning of the 3rd trimester. So I was just like, what? And then nothing ever came of it, right? It was just something that it's just like one of those freak things that I had to deal with. Was put on bed rest every time, but went ahead and made it to my due date. My due date was Halloween. I
oh,
thought it
that's
was,
so cool.
I know, I was thrilled.
Oh,
We were
did
just
she
like, are
come
you
on
kidding?
Halloween?
She came the next day.
Oh, man.
I know. We were like, oh my God, we're going to have a Halloween baby. That's so cool. But
Yeah.
November 1st is still pretty cool. We're like, we still combine Halloween and her birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool, though.
So we were super excited for that. Halloween came and went, and we were like, oh, well, like I guess we won't have a Halloween baby after all. And then I was like, uh-oh, am I going to go past due? Am I going to be a 2-weeker,
Yeah. You dread that. Once you go past your due date, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought it was going to be over by now. And you're telling me I have to go even longer. Yeah. It's the
Yep.
worst. So 3:30 that morning, that night into the morning, I wake up and it feels crazy. Like I feel outside of myself. Like I'm floating, I'm expansive. My self has taken up the whole room. Like something is happening.
Whoa.
It felt really intense. And I thought like, I think something's happening. Then I heard slash felt a pop.
Mm.
And I was like, no way. I think my water just broke. Was that my water breaking? No way. So I stood up and I just feel like everything start to saturate. It's just like, oh my gosh, like that was definitely my water breaking. Like, oh my gosh. So I go to the bathroom. I'm all excited. I wake my husband up. I tell him that, like definitely it's happening. Water definitely broke. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So we packed up and we left for the hospital. I want to talk a little bit about that because I feel like that was a mistake and something that I didn't know at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I'm going through my pregnancy in the hospital system, particularly this one where I don't know how other states are set up, but here in Vermont, it's 5 to 6 OBs that rotate through the practice. And then you see whoever you see. And then
Mm-hmm.
whoever's on call when you're in labor is whoever is on call. And hopefully you've seen them. So it's not great, right? It's
Right.
the policy. We were told that it's time to go to the hospital when you're in labor is if you reach the pattern of 411 or if your water breaks 2 hours after your water breaks. And I complied. I just thought like, okay, because I didn't know what evidence-based birth was at that point. And turns out there didn't need to be such urgency to get to the hospital. It's just sort of more policy,
Right.
like just because it's their policy doesn't mean that there's actual risk of infection the way that they make it seem. Like it was a very fear-based, a fear-mongering experience in hindsight because I got to the hospital and my contractions weren't starting.
I was going to
And
ask. I was like, wow, you just went straight to your water breaking.
I went straight to my water breaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
First baby too. So
Yeah.
contractions just weren't starting. And I knew enough at that point because of research that I had done. And we utilized the home visiting nurse program that we have here. So I learned a lot from her to know enough about Pitocin that I just didn't want Pitocin, right? It's
Right.
like,
Yep.
I'm more open to an epidural. I'm more open to lots of things, but I really am not into this Pitocin thing. Like, so let's leave that part out. And I was encouraged by the professionals, the medical professionals, the people on my team to like make a birth plan. So that's what I did. And I thought it was really going to be honored. And it felt like it was just not taken into consideration at all as soon as I stepped into labor and delivery. It was just like, oh no, that's cute, but we're still going to just do what we do, right?
Oh
like
my
we're the
gosh.
doctors. And when they said, we're probably going to have to start you on PIT because you're on this like timeline now of your water broke and this is the policy and this, that, and the other. I just said like, I thought I said I didn't want Pitocin. Like I was really taken aback. I was shocked that they were saying it because I was like, I kind of walked in all proud. Like I have my plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were just like, we're going to start you on Pitocin. And I was just like, I remember wanting to just yank my hand away as they were setting the IV up. I just wanted to yank it away and be like, no, like this feels wrong. This feels
Yeah.
wrong. I don't want this. They gave it to me. Felt like I couldn't say no at that point. It felt like I had to comply. And then as soon as it entered into my bloodstream, it just wrecked me. I was like screaming and
Oh my
contracting and
God.
like it was horrible, horrible for hours. Like it felt like every 20 seconds I was having these contractions come forth. It wasn't this like slow, natural onset. It went from no contractions to like, holy fucking shit. Like this is horrible.
Yeah.
So after a few hours of that, my baby's heart rate starts to drop
Ugh.
because all of the things that I learned about Pitocin, which is why I said I didn't want Pitocin, like started happening. And I'm just thinking, why is this happening? Like, I didn't want this. This feels so wrong.
Right. You didn't
Um,
get to honor your body. You wanted to listen to your body and you weren't able to do that.
Not at all. And I really felt like I could have at least done my own work up until a point where maybe we can talk about Pitocin, but it felt like I wasn't even given a chance. It was just like, nope, we're here. You're on the timeline now. You've entered into the doors. Once those
Yeah.
doors shut behind you, it's especially with the water breaking, like they were so obsessed with that. They were
Yeah.
like, they even wanted to do like a swab to see if it really was my water. And I was like, what do you know? Don't believe me? Like I'm telling you. And then of course, they did the petri dish thing. Like, yep, it's her water. Like her water's broken. And it turns out that that whole risk of infection, like it really isn't that high. Like it's just
Mm.
this like tiny percentage. So they really obsess over that. Heart rate starts to drop on baby. I'm nowhere near dilated. I'm not past 3.
Mm. Oh
Um,
my gosh.
yeah, like I'm not budging past 3. So surprise, surprise, I have to go in for a C-section.
Mm-hmm.
And I am like sobbing and yelling. Like I was definitely one of those like crazy kind of like in distress laboring people. Like it was probably a sight to see.
Well, it was traumatic.
There was so much trauma happening. So my baby comes out in like 20 minutes, it feels like I'm rolled
Yeah.
into OR and it's just like she's out and she's healthy. She's crying. It felt great. They were able to bring her to me. I was so exhausted. I was at that point had the epidural and whatever else, because of this operation. And just relieved that it was over, that it was sort of like I was happy, it was sort of like, like I was just so happy it was over and that
Right.
she was here. And, I was just like, let's get bonding. Like, I don't even care about what just happened. Like, let's just get bonding, which I was able to do what felt like really naturally with my daughter. Like, just despite and considering the circumstances, like she latched right on. I felt like just so connected to her.
That's so good.
Um, and that was really healing for me to kind of get past the trauma, at least immediately. I was still in shock, and a lot of the trauma did come and resurface later. But
Mm-hmm.
right then and there, it was just like, I'm just happy and relieved, right? Except for like a day and a half later, we get this pediatrician coming in saying that my daughter's blood sugar has been low since birth. They have not been able to stabilize her blood sugar numbers, and that the hospital we were at that didn't have a NICU wasn't equipped to try and get her healthy again.
Yeah.
So they're telling us this, and then they start to explain that they've called the ambulance from UVM.
They didn't talk to you before this.
Nope.
No. Oh
Um,
my gosh.
the NICU ambulance is on its way. This is where she needs to be. And, like, we're so sorry or whatever. And I mean, I was like, I started sobbing. I thought she was dying. I didn't
Yeah.
know what to think or what was going on. The ambulance, the like NICU stretcher comes rolling into the room, and I'm just like, I mean, I could cry thinking about it now. Like, are you kidding me? What is
Oh
happening?
my
Like,
God.
none of this is supposed to be happening. This can't be
Right.
real. My husband goes off and he starts sobbing because he couldn't bear the sight of like her being wheeled away. Then they wheeled her away, right? Without us, because we couldn't go in the ambulance with her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we couldn't go in the ambulance with her.
And she's like a day old, 2 days old at this point. Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
Yeah, little thing. And so they wheel her out, and my husband and I basically look at the nurse in charge and we're just like, get us the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Discharge me now, because they technically had to keep me there post-op.
Yep.
But they were like, yeah, we're gonna let you go. Like, we'll discharge you. You can go be tended to up at the other hospital. Like, so that was good. I felt like I didn't want to say they broke the rules or bent the rules a little bit, but they definitely were like, let's get you out of here. Like, felt like they expedited the process.
Were
Um,
you like discharged, or were you checked in at UVM? No, you were just
so that's a
fully
good question.
discharged.
Yeah, I had to then go in. My daughter was a patient. And so I was sort of a secondary patient. I wasn't a primary, or like I wasn't checked in as a patient.
Okay.
But they were able to get me into the postpartum wing, which they had to do some things to finagle me
Yeah.
in there. The first night we stayed in the Ronald McDonald room, which was like downstairs on like a fold out couch kind of thing.
Oh.
Recovering from a C-section, like I'm telling you, it was.
I mean, I had a C-section. It's not an easy recovery, and you're 2 days post-op, and you're in a fold-out couch. Like, oh my, and your daughter's upstairs, you're not with her. I cannot imagine.
It was a mess. I was a mess. And at that point, my tears had run dry. I was just like a zombie. I was just walking around just like, oh my God, like like I just want to be home. I'm also trying to pump because I want to get colostrum out for her. Like, it was just everything that's supposed to be a part of the sacred process, like the sacredness of the process, that first latch and like the colostrum and everything. It just was so broken. Like, I
Yeah.
was over here and she was over here, and it was just a mess. So I'm finally in the postpartum wing. She's in the NICU. Despite the circumstances, I had a fantastic 3 days in the NICU. NICU nurses are just some of the best people, like best
Yeah.
trained, best hearts. They actually explained things to me. They were actually helping me. Just the best people.
Oh, good.
So I felt like I was in really good hands. And so again, I was like able to settle into it. All right, let's try this again. I was able to nurse her. She was hooked up to wires and stuff like that, which was awkward and sad. But there was also this interesting perspective of her being a full-term baby in the NICU. And I'm looking
Yeah.
around and these little babies. And so I was like, okay, she's going to be okay. This is just we just got to iron this out. She's going to be okay. And she was. It's like not even like no indication that she had was in the NICU at birth. So was able to get home and settle in, and I felt okay for a while. At the 6-month mark, I started to really feel not okay about
Mm.
what happened with the birth. I was angry. I started to feel, I think the sleep deprivation started to really kick in. So I started to not feel like myself, which it wasn't as bad the first time as the second time around. Like, I was high functioning. I didn't even
Yeah.
really know that I was having like mood disorders or anything like that. I was just like, I thought it was all somewhat to be expected.
Well, and it's
But
interesting. It's interesting that you say that you started noticing it at 6 months, because a lot of the families that I talk to, there's always this, it's called the magic 6 month mark. And that's when you're supposed to start feeling better. And you're
Oh,
noticing at 6 months. And maybe you were like regulating your hormones and you were finally able to feel all the feels
yeah.
and be like, that was not what I signed up for. But yeah, that's just really interesting to me that you picked out that 6 month mark, that that's when it started for you.
Yeah, it really did. It was like, oh, I'm starting to feel not okay about the way she came into this world. And like,
Yeah.
I started to notice that anytime I was driving to the grocery store, which I have to drive by the hospital to get there, that my heart started to race and
Mm.
that I started to not even want to go to the grocery store. And I was like, what is happening to me? But I was still so in love with my baby that it was just sort of like riding the roller coaster. I was
Mm-hmm.
just riding the roller coaster, and like she was such a special baby that she was healing for me. Honestly, like she was a great baby to have after having an experience like that, which
Mm-hmm.
makes the second go around just that much more painful because I feel so guilty. So fast forward, she was just past a year. We started talking about, should we try for baby number two? If it took
Mm-hmm.
2 years, and it takes 2 years again, that would make the difference. Penny will be either 3 or 4. That will be a good age difference. Like, so maybe we should start trying now. And lo and behold, I get pregnant right away.
Of course.
Of course. So I feel like I announced the pregnancy maybe when she was 18 months. My son's due date was December. So she was 2 years in November, and then he was born. So it was just 2 years and 1 month between them.
Okay.
Um, so I was pregnant, and then I started to get the morning sickness, and I didn't have bleeding this time, which was such a relief. But I was pregnant with a toddler, and I was just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like this is no joke. This is not for the faint of heart.
No. Oh my God. No. Did not go according to plan.
So again, not according to plan, right? Because I'm like, I know I wanted to have kids close in age, but like 2 years that's close, and I didn't think it would be that close. But whatever, it's great now. They're 7 and 5, and it's wonderful now. And I started to slip into a pretty dark headspace when I was pregnant with my son because I was like so on point with my daughter, even just like I was like making her own baby food. And I was like that kind of mom, right?
Yeah.
And I was slipping into exhaustion and just like cutting corners and just like really not being able to do the things that I was wanting to do or had been doing. So I was like, oh no, this is not what I pictured, but we're just going to go with it, right? I just wanted to be grateful, it was all of the things. Decided on a different hospital during my pregnancy with my son, and we decided on the hospital where the NICU is
Yeah.
because of all of the just in case. And a lot of people ask me if they think home birth, or rather if I wish that I had chose a home birth, and I don't necessarily. I'm more upset that there's such a lack of options for us in the
Yeah.
state, because I don't think I would have had dramatically better outcomes having a home birth. Our insurance at the time wouldn't have covered it anyway. Like it was an affordability thing. And I really did want to be in the care of other people. Like I know a midwife would have very much done that, but there was just something about being somewhere and resting. I don't know. So, had there been more independent birthing centers here, I would have chosen an independent birthing center in a heartbeat. So I went with the hospital again. I have regrets, but I also just don't know what I would have done differently. And I was very much trying to advocate this time around. I really don't want Pitocin, everybody. I had a really bad experience. you might not be allowed to say that Pitocin caused our issues, but I know in my heart of hearts that it did. Like low blood sugar in a baby after her heart rate drops after I get like it adds up for me. Like it checks all of the boxes for me. So really tried to strongly advocate against Pitocin. And I said, I'm open to other things. I'm open to an epidural. I'm even open to a cesarean. Like I healed really well. I always have, even as a kid, any scrapes, cuts, bruises, whatever, like I could just, whatever, like
You're Wolverine.
just seals
Yeah.
right back up. So I thought, I'm not as afraid. I'm less afraid of a C-section than Pitocin. Like
Wow.
end of story. Like that's kind of what I do still feel at the end of the day. Like I would have rather just had a C-section than Pitocin, right? So I'm really trying to advocate for all of this. Again, trying to navigate a system where I'm dealing with multiple doctors and midwives, and then trying to see who I connect best with, and then hoping they're on call when I'm in labor, right?
Exactly. Yep.
It's just so set up for failure or just non-success from the get-go.
It's not a personal experience, which birth should be.
Exactly. And if you really connect with someone, why can't we just choose that person? Like I get why you should have multiple people, but I just think that there should be more control from our end. Like it just feels like such a loss of control. So pregnancy was okay, got through it. Pregnant with a toddler, whatever. She entered into her like loving Moana and like picky eating stage. So at the end of pregnancy, she was more than happy to just hang out in PJs and like eat goldfish, like
Perfect.
yeah. So I was like, we can get cozy. Like this is cool. Plus it was a December baby. We're up here in Vermont. It was middle of winter. So I am, again, it's 3:30 in the morning. It's on December 15th. My due date wasn't until December 26th.
Okay.
But I was feeling like I wasn't going to go that long. I was feeling like I'm big. Like I also like I felt so maxed out. And so then December 15th, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, same as with my daughter. And I'm
Crazy.
like, I'm feeling that same feeling of expansion. Like I'm filling up the room, like I'm floating. Like it's just so cool, the coolest experience. And I'm like, I think it's happening. And then I started getting these low and slow contractions. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, 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 it's happening. Like my water hasn't broken yet. I'm starting to labor. It's 10 days before I'm due, which is great. I'm
Yeah.
so excited. It's also the most beautiful, like sunrise, crescent moonrise,
Oh,
December pastel sky. Like I was thrilled.
yeah. You feel like you're getting your do-over almost.
Exactly. Like it was even in my head in that moment of like even early on in the labor, I was like, I'm gonna get a do-over. And I did in a way. I was late. I labored at home for 12 hours. And it was like I was a laboring person, right? Like it actually felt like I was like the whole like into it. And then I get to the pattern of 411, 511. I can't remember, but I get to
I
the
think it's
pattern
511, but it
511.
it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like whatever.
Whatever it is.
And we're like, all right, let's go. So off we go to the hospital. We set our daughter up with my in-laws, who are our neighbors. It's a wonderful thing that we have here on our road. And so off we go. And I'm laboring in the car, which I don't recommend to anybody. Like,
Oh no.
it was brutal.
Especially on those fun Vermont back roads.
Oh, I know, right? It's like digga, 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 digga. So we drive the 50 plus an hour or so minutes to get to the hospital. We get there, we park, we get to labor and delivery. And the midwife who's on call is the midwife who I saw one time.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh God. So I'm slipping into a headspace where I'm already starting to feel like, it's not going the way I want it to go. Like I wanted literally anyone else.
Yeah.
And so she helps us settle in and she was great, whatever. I am pretty settled in at this point and I'm laboring and I'm on a ball. I'm bouncing on a ball and my water breaks and something changed. Something started happening where it felt like something was like actually ripping, like tearing on the
Oh
inside
my
of me.
gosh.
So this is where it's going to start to get really graphic for you and the audience.
This episode will come with a content warning for
Yeah, so
sure.
this is where it's going to start to get really cringy. So I started screaming because it was like a reflex almost. Like I couldn't even stop myself. It was like a roar coming from the inside, like screaming because of how much pain suddenly happened with the water breaking
Mm-hmm.
and the dropping of the pressure. And then at the end of the story, it'll be like, oh, so like it was so painful, like something was happening. And I was like immediately scared. Like I was immediately terrified. Like, I don't know what's wrong. Something's wrong. Something doesn't feel right. And they were telling me to stop screaming.
What?
Um, yeah,
What?
yeah. They were like, you have to stop screaming. And I was like, I can't not. And I'm trying to talk in between screaming because it was just like, like a build up. And then just, it was so painful to the point where like, I couldn't not scream. And I was just like, I can't believe I'm being told not to scream right now. Like, can you actually just help me find some relief instead of telling me to stop screaming?
Yeah.
Um, and I just said, I need pain relief. I don't know if that means an epidural or I need pain relief. Like I'm in an unusual, extraordinary amount of pain. Like everything was manageable before. It was painful, but like it felt like what it was supposed to be. This doesn't feel like what it's supposed to be. So they were like a little hesitant at first because they wanted to check me before the epidural too. That was another thing. They were like wanting to check me. And that was also super painful. I was like, I can't, no, like you can't do that right now. Like I'm in so much pain.
Yeah.
Um, so like, all right, let's get the anesthesiologist in. And because it at that point was pretty well into the night, I think he had to be like called in, which is maybe why they didn't want to. Yeah, like he was at home. They had to call him in.
Ugh.
And he gave me the epidural and it worked. And so there was now this, I entered into like this other chapter of the labor where it was like calm, the pain went away. I was then at that point, because I was moving around, now I'm on the bed because of the epidural and I'm resting and I'm like sleeping. And then all of a sudden, a few hours later, I wake up and I'm like, I feel a lot of pain on my left side. Like everything feels numb. Like it totally feels like the epidural is working, but there's definitely like, and then it would come in waves, which I'm assuming it came with contractions. So
Right. Yeah.
I would be able to explain it. And then it'd be like, oh my gosh, there it is, there it is, there it is. Like that doesn't feel like I should be feeling it.
Yeah.
So they thought, okay, well, let's just call the anesthesiologist back in. So I'm given more drugs basically and it worked. Like I was like, okay, yeah, like the pain went away. And all the while I'm thinking like, I hope everything's okay. Like
Right. Like, what's the reason for this pain?
what's the reason for this pain? Like I feel like I should be able to labor. I was like kind of frustrated that without Pitocin, that amount of pain came through for me. Like I was really frustrated. I was like, why can't I labor?
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to rest for a few more hours, and all the while the nurses are tending to me, and as they're tending to me and changing out the bed pads,
Yeah.
they're commenting on like the blood loss, like, oh, you're losing a lot of blood, but they always made it seem like it was a good thing. Like, oh, a lot of bloody show, like so much blood. Like every single one of you has said that. Like, I feel like maybe that's not a good thing, but okay. It's like one of those things where you watch the flight attendant during turbulence. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
are you sure we're okay?
Be sure to catch us next week for part 2 of Victoria's birth story. In the meantime, you can check out her social media accounts at Stregaluna Postpartum on Instagram and Stregaluna Farms on Facebook. If you want to follow along with us on Quiet Connection, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Quiet Connection or at Quiet Connection Podcast. A great way to show your support for our community is to leave us a review on your favorite platform and consider sharing our episodes through social media. You could also consider becoming a Patreon member, where you can gain access to things like bonus content, ad-free listening, and goodies in the mail once a month. If you'd like to share your personal journey, you can reach us through our website, quietconnectionpodcast.com, or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time, where another story is told, and you realize you are not alone. I see you.